This is going to be really fun.
Gonna be a good one. Speaking of, welcome back everybody to another episode of What in the World podcast on Sunday evening, of which daylight saving times has started. So if you guys didn't realize that today, daylight savings time started. So if you didn't set your clocks for an hour, do so at some point, because I definitely did not realize it today when I woke up. But thankfully, it happened on a Sunday and not tomorrow when I have to go to work. So good to go there.
Or if you've made it this long, maybe just keep riding it out, you know?
True.
Just keep the clocks where they're at.
Just keep it where they're at, because come the fall when daylight savings time reverts, that's the last one that's ever happening. We're not doing it anymore after that. So big win there, finally. Yeah. Only took 70 years.
My mother will be the most happy person. She's a 7th grade science teacher, and she keeps one clock in her room, in her classroom, always set. So I think now the clock is correct because she boycotts daylight savings time with one clock in her classroom because she thinks it's so dumb.
And it is dumb. It's been dumb.
Her students will always be like, Miss Brummel, you know, that clock's off. She's like, nope, it's right. That's the true north of time. We're boycotting daylight savings time. So
fair enough. Well, before we get too far down that rabbit hole on this podcast, we'd like to welcome in Kathy with us tonight, who we've been teasing for a couple weeks. She had a near-death experience and has written a book about said experience. It's on Amazon. It's linked down below in the description for you guys to go check out. And yeah, so we're going to be talking to her tonight about this whole experience that she had. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited for it. I know Alex is excited for it and has so many questions. So we can't wait to get started. Also, hi, Kristen. Yes, we did miss you. Did you have fun in Paris? Kristen is Alex's wife, and she was gone for the past, week or so? Couple weeks?
She left for 10 days in Paris, and she didn't bring her husband, you know, which...
Not one souvenir?
Cruel. Oh, I got some souvenirs. But yes, we're glad to have her back in my household because I was going a little stir crazy, you know? 48 hours of no wife, and no, I have a bonus daughter, Kathy, I call her. Not a biological daughter, but a bonus daughter. And that gets very quiet, you know. It's tough to sleep at night without a whole lot of action going on. But yes, we're glad she's back. And we cannot be more excited for our interview tonight.
Exactly. So, Alex, I'm just going to let you get started on it, dude. Go for it.
So, the name of your book, let's start with that because you wrote a book about this experience, correct? And that is
Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat.
And
There, that's a
rec-
mouthful, but there's a reason for all of it. Once you get through the book, you will go, aha.
I understand, Eureka.
Yeah.
well, when I saw your profile on the website that I found you through, that was the probably the thing that drew me to your page most was like, okay, what's Misfit in Hell? I'm like, okay, so you had an upbringing in the Catholic Church, correct? Let's kind of start there. Yes.
Yes, I did. Started with my dad, who was an atheist. He was going to the University of St. Louis and arguing with all the monks and priests and anybody could get a hold of. And then he joined up to be in the Navy at World War II. He flew one of the first fighter pilots, was commissioned in the Philippines. He's only about 20 years old. And so he was anxious to get in there. And when he was over one of the islands, he got shot down. So he looked down below. There was supposed to be a place to land the plane, but somebody had landed another plane and did not move forward. So he had no other place to go but the sand. And when your wheels hit the sand, you flip the plane. So
Yeah.
it cartwheeled 3 times and landed upside down. And he'd had the canopy open because his motor was shot out and there was oil going everywhere, so he couldn't see. So now he's upside down in the plane. His head's gone right in the sand. Plane's on fire. He's got a broken arm. Anyway, he said, okay, God, if you're out there, save me. And me and my family will become Catholics. And in seconds, some Marines came out of the jungle, went over, lifted up the end of the plane, cut him out, and took him into the jungle. So he was a man of his word. And when he got back, my mom and him and my 2 sisters and my brother-to-be became Catholics. And I was raised every Sunday we went to church. I went to all Catholic schools. Dad was a lectern and my mom gave communion. I mean, right down the line, I believed everything, and that's how I lived my life.
The whole 9 yards of Catholicism after that, huh?
Yeah, never straying off the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I dabbled in that for a little while. I remember we've talked about this before, but when I was little, living in Australia with my dad and his parents down there, we went to mass every week, and then we were Baptist for a little while. Then I went back to being Catholic for a little while after kind of during college, and then after actually it was in high school. I was in high school, went back to being Catholic for a little while, and then after that, I was like, I'm done.
Well, it affects people. I had they call a distressing near-death experience first, where I went to hell,
Mm.
and it's been 23 years since all this happened. So I've had a chance to talk to other people about it that have had experiences, and about 85% of the people I run into now are ex-Catholic.
Mm.
I believe, I don't know how much you guys believe this stuff, but having finally, it took me 10 years to find the International Association of Near-Death Studies because nobody wanted to talk to me about this whole thing, being in hell, and then I went to heaven, and then I came back, and it was, oh no, it was the drugs, and no,
Yeah, it's
blah,
always
blah.
some excuse.
It wouldn't help me. And even my shrink, I finally ended up in a shrink since she says, well, I got to put PTSD on your chart for sure. I don't know how to help you, have a nice day. So it took a long time to find other people who actually would stop and say, oh, they got it. I went to one of these meetings, and there's a bunch of people there. The thing that was disturbing to me then was all I heard was all these lovely ones. People went right to heaven and they're talking to Jesus. They're having snacks with the angels. They're having a really good time. And I thought, well, that wasn't exactly my, experience.
Yeah.
So finally somebody asked me why I had that look on my face every time I came to a meeting. And I said, well, they said, aha, you had one of those distressing ones. They were all excited. People says, oh God, we got to hear about it. We never hear no talk about these things. They're like 1 in 10 when people have experiences. Why don't people come forward? And I thought, okay, you want to hear about what happened? I'll tell you what happened. So I went up on the stage and I went through the whole schmear, told everything that was happening. And those people sat in the audience with their eyes bugged out. You could have heard a pin drop. And finally, at the end, when I did manage to get out, it was like an eruption of applause. They had been with me on this journey, and they were so thrilled to hear the conclusion of it. And then, of course, going to heaven just kind of makes it all better while you're in heaven. But when I got thrown out and sent back by my best friend who I'd been taking care of, who died of leukemia, he's there. It's a month later. I died a month after he did. And he says, no, I'm sorry, Mary Kay, you got too much left to do. And I said, no.
Don't kick me out.
That sounds like the bum's rush, man. No, I'm not going to, no. And so, of course, I went back. I was so mad. I think they put me in a timeout room. I had a nice little walk by a stream before I got back. But then when I
knew how bad. They're like, wait a minute.
I do. Take a minute.
Hold
is
on.
What they said. Take a minute.
Can't send her back quite yet. Hold on.
She gonna be super mad.
Off the ledge a little bit here. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So I open up my eyes again. Now I'm in the ICU. I've got that thing in my throat. Thank God, because I couldn't speak. And my family's doing flips. They're having a great time. I've been gone like 3 weeks.
Jesus.
And they didn't think I was coming back. That the doctor said, you better say goodbye. It's not going to happen. But then I got thrown out. But anyway, I did get back, and my mom, she's going, oh, Kathy, we had a prayer circle going around the world. We got you back. And I thought, I could get my hands around your neck right now.
I wasn't so weak from laying here for 3 weeks.
I was. So it took, needless to say, a little time for me to accept being back. And then, like I said, I couldn't talk for a while, and I was a mess. I was 86 pounds. I couldn't move.
Oh, good. Gosh.
They didn't know how brain damaged I might be.
Right.
I'd probably never work again, drive a car. I was 53, and it was like, what? Why send me back and tell me I got too much to do? That sucks. That is not funny. That is not funny.
Yeah, bad joke.
Bad joke. I was so afraid to even go to sleep for fear the demons had come back and get me, and I was a wreck. Finally, like I say, 10 years. 10 years I had to go with just writing is what I did. I was a writer, I'd write it out. I kept thinking if I just write it out, stick it in a drawer, this thing will finally go away, because it could have been a dream, because it's still just as fresh as it was the day before. And so through a series of synchronicities, which you become a lot more aware of when you come back, I ended up in IONS. And again, I like I said, I was kind of odd man out, but the more I stuck with it, and I found some books from IONS people that had the distressing, and it kind of became my mission, to come back and find other distressing NDEers and help them understand what happened. And I really pinned it on the good old Catholic education of being told from the time I was a small child that nobody goes straight to heaven, Kathy. You always have to go to purgatory. You go to purgatory. It's like hell now, Kath, and it's not good, but you'll only be there till your sins are burned off, and then you can go in front of God, all purified and stuff. So I thought that, hooks, line, and sinker. And so when I got on the other side, I made one, and I took all the horrible things that had happened in my life, and I've had a few, and I made them worse, and I made my own hell. They were in segments. It took another 12 years to figure out, how that all fit together, and to hear other people say the same things. A lot of them have segments, and they seem to make sense with things. Like the first scene I woke to, well, first I had to meet the demon that came out of the void. And then I went running for my life because I did no time thought I was dead. Because your soul is you. That's your personality. You don't need a body. It's like a car. You get in and you get out. So I'm wandering around there, and there's this huge bombed out city like New York or something, and the buildings have fallen down. The windows are blown out. There's concrete and fires and people screaming. I mean, it just, boom, there I was, stuck in the middle of all this. And later on, I was able to realize that was when I was in Santa Cruz, California in 1989, downtown, when we had that horrendous earthquake. And my town fell down, and my whole office was shaking. Things are falling over. I mean, I tried to get home. It was bumper to bumper. The freeway we had to go over a part of the freeway that was falling down. And I mean, it was horrible. So that was one of the things I took to hell.
So I was going to say, just before we get into more of what your experience was, how did we get to, like, what was the accident, I guess, that you were in that led to this, to your near death?
I was taking care of my best friend. Okay. He had leukemia. He was in Seattle at a research hospital, and he was 53. We had been engaged for 7 years and had split up, but we're still best friends because he had to go to the East Coast. I was on the West Coast. Anyway, I was with him for 9 months, day and night, around the clock, with another woman that we took turns. I was a rundown wreck. And then he died, and I was just a wreck. So when I went to a concert with a friend, almost everybody had the flu. This was in LA.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
and it was just like the flu, like COVID, So I got the flu, I got pneumonia, and then it went into lung failure.
Oh, okay. Damn. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to get that out there, maybe for our listeners that hadn't had a chance to look into it.
Yeah, there was,
yet,
in a coma, your soul wanders off.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to flatline to go on the other side.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Your soul's like, the car's parked and we'll take a walk.
This is boring. See what's out there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay,
I don't want to get back.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've parked the car and your soul is out wandering around, and the first scene you come across is essentially a reenactment, per se, of the earthquake in Santa Cruz.
Among other things.
things.
And again, I didn't have time to stop and say, gee, I wonder what's going on. No, I felt like I was running for my life the whole time. I knew this was really, really bad. I knew it didn't make sense, but I couldn't get out.
Right.
Can you correlate this time-wise to, like, is this after you've flatlined, after your heart has stopped beating, or this is while you're in the coma?
Coma, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's no time on the other side. It's an eternal now.
Exactly.
So a lot can happen in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I was out for almost 3 weeks, but when I got back and tried to figure out how long I had been there, I figured about 2 years. I mean, it was a long ass time.
Right.
A lot went on. I was glad to get back.
Yeah. Well, after you took your stroll by the stream to calm down.
Yeah. No, heaven was great. I highly recommend it.
10 out of 10 heaven experience.
Yeah. And again, I'm trying to tell people, skip the trip. If you don't believe in hell, you won't go there, because God is all loving, all forgiving, and condemns no one. So you do get a life review. I wasn't there long enough to get one, but I've heard that they're really kind of fascinating. I mean, you get to see from the time you were conceived to the time you die, on this big screen and everything. Is really cool.
So the light flashing before your eyes thing, kind of,
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Oh, that's cool.
It's a real thing, and it's two-toned. I mean, you get to see everything that you've done. You plan your life. You come down here, you want to learn things. You want to see how you did. And you get to see, I did good there, not so good there. But then they flip this baby around, and you get to experience how it was to interact with you. So every single person that you had an interaction with, if you were really kind and nice to them, you get warm fuzzies. If you flipped them off because they bumped into your car, you're going to feel their anger. You're going to feel their pain. You're going to feel their sorrow. So it's not a judgment. It's just you getting to understand how you did. Did you learn what you wanted to learn? And those are, love is the most important thing we're supposed to learn. How to
Okay.
love people
Well,
under
that's
any
so that's
circumstance.
good. That's
Mhm.
good, like to hear, because that's what Alex and I have been saying for a long time. It's kind of our tagline at the end of this is just be good to people and love people. And one thing that I've always said, having like left established, denominational religion, and now I'm on a journey of exploring what Norse paganism has to offer. Um, but we've always said in is that like Jesus's teachings, his main teachings were just love me first, and then love one another, and that was it. That's his like one and two. So if as long as we've always kind of said, as long as you live your life in that regard, you're gonna be fine.
Right. When I came back, I said, I don't want any more thou shalt nots. Give me something I can say every morning. And what's
Mm-hmm.
the most important things? And it was be loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non judgmental, and useful. So that's my little mantra in the morning.
That's
So,
a
if you
great.
can't remember all that, loving and
Yeah.
kind covers it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great mantra. And some of the things that I've done as I've started this new journey is that there's not too much like difference between like Christianity and like Norse paganism, outside of the fact obviously that's like it's a pantheon of gods rather than just one, but the teachings between both correlate more so than they differ. The Norse paganism is a very open and accepting religion. It wasn't like just going out and it's like hating on people. Like some people have co-opted uh some of the symbols from Norse paganism as white supremacy or hate groups and that kind of stuff. But the main core of it is just to be connected to nature and respectful of nature and respectful of people and be helpful and be a part like a productive and helpful member of the community and to just be accepting of people. We all come from different walks of life. There's no reason to not be accepting of everybody.
Absolutely.
So it's been interesting to see some correlation between both.
Well, one of my favorite Bible verses is God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. And I think that, and we've talked about this extensively. Apologize for listeners who are like, oh boy, here they go again. But it is so true that anything that humanity gets its hands on has an innate ability to really screw it up, to really, excuse my language, fuck it up 10 ways to Sunday. And I think it's funny because the more humans have changed over the years, the more they've stayed the same. You know, during Jesus's time, he didn't go to the temples to meet with the rabbis and say, okay, who's the most high-profiled rabbi in this church? I want to sit down and meet with you. No, he went and found the tax collector. He went and found the fisherman, and he was flipping tables in the merchant areas because they were weighted the weights that they were using to charge people for fish or beans or whatever. They were weighted in such a way that people were being taken advantage of and paying more for goods than they should have. That's a big missed thing that a lot of people don't understand, why Jesus was so pissed when he went in there and started flipping tables. He's like, not only are you doing this in the house that's supposed to be of the Lord, but you're screwing people over while you're doing it. So now over time, people have found a way, the Joel Osteens of the world have found a way to say, okay, let me take this message and really spin a little weave with it to get people, to manipulate people what I want them to do. And that's, again, the more humanity's changed, the more it's stayed the same over the course of time. And this is what we're living in now. And it's so interesting to talk to someone who's been to that other side. And really, I don't know how you would verbalize the feelings that you would experience on the other side. I don't know that there's a way, and you do it eloquently. I know the answers to most of these questions I'm going to ask you, but I do want for the listeners to be able to hear them as well. Um, if you had to try to verbalize just that feeling of just, pure love, joy, acceptance. I'm sure you've thought about it a lot. How would you verbalize that?
Well, the lady is tough. It's ineffable. There are
Yeah.
no words other than bliss and joy and love and all that stuff. But I was in a dollar store one day, and some lady was buying one of those balloons, with a helium,
Mm-hmm.
and they took this little, rubber balloon, and she turned on that thing, and it went whoosh, and it, turned into like 10 times its size, and I thought, that was the feeling. I was like this little human being, and when I went into heaven, I just went whoosh. I got all so full of love, like I thought I was gonna pop. It's just that, and it's just joy, and everything that's ever happened to you that's been good times a million. I mean, you don't want to leave, of course, when you've got that kind of joy. Um, uh, we're all homesick, man. If you've ever been over there and come back, it's like, you went to camp and it was really fun and you just want to go back to camp. You get homesick. You just really do. And you think, okay, here I am 23 years later, I'm 76 years old. When do I get to go home? When is it going to be enough? But I have to say, no, you're here. You want to get it done right. You don't want to have to come back and do it again.
Right. You don't want your best friend to kick you out yet again.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on him. I mean, we always were playing tricks on each other. I mean, and the last one I got him really good. So I'm sure when they said, everybody's going, I'm not going to be the one to tell her. I'm not going to be the one to tell her. Said,
I'll do it. She's got one coming.
Do it. Come on. So yeah, we got a little score to settle.
So it's, with your experience there, could you say that like the experience in heaven is kind of tailored to you in such a way of like kind of how, like in the opposite way that like hell was for your like experiences down there, or is it kind of just like a one experience for all?
Well, I can't really answer that, but I can
I know
say
you weren't there super long, obviously, but like
I made my own hell, so there is no one size fits all for hell. It's going to be something that's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And again, going back to me planning it, I mean, we plan everything that happens here. And one of the things that I learned from a lady she's like the queen of distressing near-death experiences. She knows everything. She says, we're the brave souls. It took a really brave soul to say, okay, somebody's got to do this. They've got to go to have this experience, come back, and then go out and tell people, again, skip the trip, not to do it. So I now see that experience as the best thing that ever happened. I was stuck in this rut of not believing of it, just mishmashing around, not knowing what to expect, but thinking it was going to be terrible. That was always hanging over my head. I had a little daughter who died when she was 2 days old. I mean, I wouldn't let them operate till they baptized her because I was scared to death I'd never see her again. I mean, so much fear in my life. But now, anything that happens, I planned it. I'm no longer a victim. I planned it. I just say, well, that screwed up. I wonder what I wanted to learn on that, But I don't blame God. I don't blame anybody for what's going on in my life. It's very freeing. I don't recommend learning it this way.
Don't learn it the hard way.
Take my advice, and we're just here for a short time, and we're learning how to be loving and kind. And when we get home, and another thing I've heard is like, this is the toughest gig. I mean, when you reincarnate, you can go anywhere and be anything, but to come to Earth is a toughie. It's tough down here. Just like you said a few minutes ago, it never gets any better. But I think it is getting better. There's more and more people who are becoming enlightened, with quotes, and trying. And I think it'll tip the scale one of these days. But it'll never be perfect on Earth. This is not heaven. This is school.
Okay, gotcha.
There's a question that's burning a hole in my pocket, and that's it. It relates to that and that hell experience that you experienced, and that's one thing. The whole aspect of hell, heaven, hell, theologically, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around. Because if we're all made in God's likeness and he created all of us and God is free from sin, then then how do we sin in such a way that puts us away from God? And then that's where the free will thing comes into play and blah blah blah. You could do 4 hours on heaven and hell.
And you could get a headache with that.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Trust
Number
me.
one, you're right. We got little tiny earth brains. They're little tiny, and eternity and all of that stuff. There's no way we can figure that out.
Right.
But God is all loving and all forgiving. Period. God is love and energy. That's all God is, just love and energy. And we are part of God. Our souls are pieces of God. That energy, whatever, dark matter, whatever. We're part of God. God can't hate God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's wrong to say that we can be separated from God unless we take our free will and say, I don't want to be next to God.
Yeah.
There's positive energy, there's negative energy. So there's negative energy somewhere.
Right.
There's not really a hell, but there might be a spot where people hang out that really don't, for some reason, they can't get into heaven because they won't let go of their anger, or they.
Oh no, we lost her. That's
Oh,
unfortunate.
dang it.
Dang it. Right when it was getting good too.
I know. I had a perfect transition question.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
really.
back.
I'm back.
You're back.
Yes,
She's
no.
back.
Yep, you're back.
Yep.
Oh, it was getting
You
good,
know-
and then it just kicked you.
Yeah, well, you know what? Now I can't see you anymore.
Oh no.
To turn
Let
on
me see
the
if I can go
camera.
back here. You can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you
Yep.
for sure.
Okay, well, are we audio too? I mean, video?
Yeah. Your video is not on, so but
Well, you know what? Let me just tell you that when you come back from over there, you've got extra energy. And this happens to me a lot. Or anybody that's had a near-death experience. They have trouble with podcasts and lights going out, and some people can't even wear a watch.
interesting. Wow.
So when I get kind of cranked up, sometimes I think my energy kind of knocks things out. So anyway, where was I?
Everything that you say, I'm just like it's just feeding my soul. Like honestly, it's the more I'm a very curious person, and I've done a lot of meditation practices, 100+ days sober now, found meditation
For you.
in my sobriety, almost kind of to stop me from going crazy.
Yeah.
And sensory deprivation tanks, I go once a month, and I was in this one meditation, one of my very first ones, and I was deep into this meditation and found a spirit guide, if you want to call it that. And literally it was kind of in the form of an angel, and just walked up to me and just gave me a hug and said, it's gonna be okay, just relax. It was like, and I was asking like, but why am I here? What's the purpose of all this? And she's like, just relax, it's gonna be okay. Like, almost to say, you don't need to know. Like, you're putting the cart before the horse. Just relax. And the more that I've not heeded that advice, well, heeded the advice, but at the same time, still kind of in pursuit of, trying to figure it all out, and what can I do best to help my time on this planet, and to serve the creator, whether that's God or Buddha or, whoever that is. But one question I had to tail off of that last one about the heaven and the hell, do you think that there are some people that are so wound up in their own hatred, anguish, that never leave that place of the quote unquote proverbial hell, that never get to experience the other side? Or it's hard for me to see some of the just like pure evil in the world. And it's very rare cases. I would say it's, very few and far between even, but there are just some cases of pure evil on this planet. And sometimes it's kind of hard for me to realize, or justify that person, not living, in any sort of joy or goodness whatsoever to experience that on the other side. But then my brain kicks in and say, well, who are you to judge? That's not, you're not on the judge and jury. Um, but at the same time, again, I'll just ask you, do you think there are some people who experience that hatred, that evil here, that on the other side never get to experience that pure joy, blissfulness state?
Just so you're aware, Kathy, you are mute. Oh, there we go. We figured it out. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was trying to get back in.
Oh, no
But
worries.
I wonder if I push this button again, if I'll get back.
There you go. It should be
Ta-da!
there.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Everybody kind of brings up Hitler, right?
Uh-huh.
So imagine they do. That's the most evil
Uh,
person in the world. So
Honestly,
you
that
imagine,
wasn't the example I was using in my brain, but that's a good example. There you go. There's a good
yeah.
example.
Okay, you got Hitler. He's having his life review, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is feeling every single bit of pain and horror and despair and agony that all those millions of people
Yeah, I would
felt.
not want to be him
Yeah.
during his life review.
You know, he's probably still doing his life review. I mean, how
It'll
would
be a
you
long
even
one.
get through something like that? So how could you give him any more punishment than to see, or for him to feel what he did on this earth?
Mhm.
God doesn't have to touch him. I mean, if he gets to go through all of that, not only those people, but their families, what they all went through. So I don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. It's not for us to worry about. We just have to not worry, but we just have to take care of ourselves. And I hope that helps. Oh, another one thing. Sorry about that. Somebody did tell me that if you can't get through your life review, you can't go in. You got to stay there.
You got to
And
sit
that's where
there.
the thing with the negativity, if you can't go in, I mean, you have free will to go through that review and then leave all that muck behind, and then you can go in. But if you say no, I'm not sorry for that or whatever, just stay out there and of your own volition.
Interesting.
Huh.
I had another question. So I know you mentioned just super briefly reincarnation earlier. So is that like a for real thing? Like it's definitely possible to be like reincarnated either again back on Earth or where else or wherever else?
I've heard so many people. They all say, yeah. I mean, your energy, you're eternal.
Mhm.
You can go any place you want. It's not like you're sent anywhere, and that's the interesting thing for me is, I've heard a lot of people don't want to come back here.
Mhm.
I'll go anywhere, but don't send me back here. I not send you, but pick it. I'll have to wait and
Right.
see. Some people say you can get a vacation life every now and then. It's one of those people where everything goes their way. They just kind of they get married, they live in the same house, they got a job, they live, they die, and nothing ever happens. And they said, this time I want a vacation life, or now they're saying aliens. There is no such thing as aliens. If we're all part of God, they are too. So they decided to live on Pluto or be giant grays or whatever. So I'm kind of thinking, I watch a lot of Gaia. I'm kind of thinking which planet I might want to go to next.
Yeah.
Get out of Earth. You betcha. Be part of the
Sign
Space Federation,
Right.
sign me up for the alien reincarnation.
Wouldn't
I
it
will
Alex
be
be
is
fun?
so
first
keyed
on
in on
that list.
aliens, so that's
Oh, I know.
interesting.
I think it'd be a blast. Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, now with the amount of documented cases that there are of, quote unquote reincarnations, I think it's hard to argue against it at this stage of the game, with these children who come back. And that's another one of the episodes in that show I was talking about earlier, Surviving Death, is these kids come back, and one in particular was telling of how he used to fly these fighter jets, and how his war partner was killed on the battlefield, and describing this individual in great detail, and down to the date, down to where he was buried, and they can trace this gentleman that he's speaking about. And then you can tell when he gets too into the weeds, he kind of freaks himself out and then, backs out of it. And that's one of dozens and dozens and dozens of
It just gives you
cases.
the chills, doesn't it? I
It,
mean,
yeah.
I
you
mean,
can't refute that. I mean,
that's the thing is how, it's not like dad. I mean, I guess in some crazy world, dad could have been training this kid from birth to recount this story. I
yeah,
guess you could maybe in some world say, well, it's all for publicity, but no,
not the number of these things that happen.
Yeah.
No.
no.
And then, I don't know if you've ever had a past life regression. That's very interesting. It really is. I was an alien once. It was really fun. It was kind of boring. I was in this spaceship, and I just went. My job was to go around Earth, and I just all my little instruments and stuff. Just there's a lot of aliens that just keep an eye on us and see if we set off an atomic bomb or something. I don't know. It was just kind of
Yeah.
trippy.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that's interesting because when I did one of my readings with Emily, she told me that like I have like my spirit guide is just kind of basically like this just big hulking like Viking guy, and she's like, I don't know if take it for what you will if you believe in past lives or not, but like in a past life this guy was probably your friend, and you guys like went and did stuff together. And so I was like, well, I have no reason not to believe this. And I think it's pretty cool that I guess in like a past life, I was just like this Norse Viking, and me and my ginormous freaking friend just went around and did Viking stuff, which is kind of
Yeah.
what set me on this, like, the path of exploring what, Norse paganism is and what it has to offer
Yeah.
and stuff. And
That
it's
makes sense.
also interesting that, again, that, we've talked about reincarnation for a little while, and I've kind of had this little thought that's just kind of hung out with me for a long time, is that maybe no one religion is right, but it's all different segments of the same one, and that people just decided to focus on, rather than we all just meld it all together and it just makes up what actually is. So like the probably gonna get this wrong, either like the Hindus or the Buddhists that believe in reincarnation. That's one aspect that is apparently true, and then maybe some of the other Far East religions are also like that's their stuff ties in as well, as along with Christianity and Islam and whatever other heathen and folk religions that were abounding back in the day as well. And it's just all kind of one thing, and it's all the same God, and we just choose to worship the same God in a different way that makes sense for where we grew up culturally.
Right. That's absolutely right. And the caveat there is if your religion is teaching you that you're going to go to hell, or if you don't believe such and such, you're going to go to hell, or that person over there doesn't believe what we do, they're going to go to hell. It's bullshit, and run. That is not where you need to be, because
Just
that's not true. God
probably
doesn't condemn anybody.
it's probably why I took a large leap away from established like Christianity as a religion, because more often than not, when you go to church in that sect, it's just like, well, you better live a good life and you better do this, and this, otherwise it's hell for you, dude. And
Yeah.
all they ever preach is brimstone and fire and it's like, I don't think that's true. Like, there's so much else in the Bible that says that God is loving and stuff, and they just pull out the worst parts of when God or the creator had to bring down actual judgment because people were really messing it up, and they just kind of
You
latched
got to
onto
be
that.
careful. You got to be careful. The Bible, I don't believe, is what people think it is. And
Yeah.
I've done a lot of reading on it, and there's that's not where I put my. There's 3 things in the Bible I accept: the Sermon on the Mount, the prodigal son, and the Good Samaritan.
Yep.
Those are all loving, positive things, but nope.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Alex said earlier: is man got our hands on it and twisted it, and it got so far removed from what it actually was in the beginning that now who knows what it actually said when it was first written.
Well, there's a couple of good books out there that will give you a heads up on that. The new book of early Christianity is about this thick, but it's very good. And I'm reading another one now about who was Jesus.
Mm.
And very interesting, very interesting.
It's funny because that's one of the things that I point to from the Bible very frequently, and it's interesting in these conversations because my atheist friends don't like to talk to me about it because they're like, oh, they get frustrated, and then my true devout Christian friends don't like to talk to me about it because they're like, oh, like somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Yeah.
When they brought the adulterer to Jesus and they said, hey, in the book it says we got a stoner. That's just the way it is. She's cheating on her husband. We got to stone her. And again, if you're just reading from that scripture and obeying scripture, you would say, okay, yeah, that's what Jesus would have said. Okay, boys, let's go pick up the stones. Let's get to it. Instead, he says, he who's without, sin casts the first stone. He directly violated orders from the Bible. If you're looking at it just true black and white, but there again, it's more to say. Another one of my favorite quotes from Jesus is when the disciples are all sitting around and, who's the best disciple? Jesus, come on, tell us who's the best one, who's the most loyal follower? A bunch of dudes sitting around like, all right, who's the best? He picks up the child and says, you see this child? This child is the closest thing to heaven in this room right here. And what does that child have other than just innocence and purity towards, hasn't been around enough to be corrupted to the world, and again, like you just said very eloquently, you have to be really careful when you're getting into the weeds of the Bible and what was crafted and what was interpreted in such a way to have some distinct advantages taken from that scripture. Hey, you got to tithe. You got to tithe to the church. God said you got to give us your money. Well, when did Jesus say that?
Yeah.
What passage did Jesus say you got to give the church your money? Because I don't know. I can't find it,
No.
But you 10%, that's just what it is. You got to tie to the church. So we can
it's
build
been
another
used
softball field?
have power over people.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And it's gotten to have too many man-made rules. The spirit has gone out.
Yeah, and just another thing Alex and I have talked about on this before is that like the church has latched onto so many things from the Old Testament that they forgot that when Jesus came down, he was like, "You don't live by this anymore. This was old rules. You don't got to do that anymore. This was rules, a set of rules for a certain time period, and that's what made sense there. But times have changed, and we don't have to do that anymore.
Love one another. Period.
That's like we said earlier, love one another. Just like his 1 and 2, love me, love one another. That's it. That's all you had to do. You don't have to do all this other mess. Like the Catholics were one of the worst about it because they used to have that slogan that was every time a coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs, and everybody was like, "Oh Lord, I got to get my family out of purgatory!" Ding 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 ding, and there goes all the coins, and the church was like, "Silly sheep."
I never heard that one. That's hysterical.
Yep.
No, every time I went by a cemetery, I'd always say prayers for the people in purgatory, and I kept thinking, "Oh my gosh, when I get to heaven, they're all going to be around saying, 'Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.'" And I'm going to get to heaven, they're going to say, "Well, it was nice of you to pray, but we've been here the whole time."
Thanks for thinking of us, but I've been having a party the whole time, so
really sweet, yeah.
Kathy, I have a question. Do you ever get met with skepticism as far as like your story, and how do you? I feel like if I were in your shoes and had experienced what you'd experienced and was met with skepticism, it would like borderline infuriate me. How do you deal with that? What's your what's your experience with that? I'll leave it at that
Well,
question.
I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm just sharing what I learned. So
Amen.
when I meet somebody who says, they're an atheist or that, the Bible says this or that, and I just say, you're in for a nice surprise.
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what you think. And you
Yeah.
can live your life like that, but you're going to go up there and say, oh man, you're kidding.
Um,
It was that easy. I mean, I didn't have to do this, and I just love one another. They say with the life review. I mean, it's the little things. They don't care if you got a PhD. They don't care if you're a millionaire. But you've helped an old lady across the street, and they're going to say, "Wow, that was nice." You know, those are the things that count. The little things that
mhm,
anybody can do, and it brings it all kind of back into focus.
right.
Why we're here.
I do. So I have another question. So you said earlier that if you don't believe in hell, then like you're not gonna go, which I thought is like super interesting. So kind of like I guess off of that, with like demons and stuff. So I've talked about this before, but I had an experience once where I was around an individual who was, and I will say this until the day I die, was possessed. We were, in church and in the Sunday school, and this dude just all of a sudden just started going off and like possession, and the demon was trying to come out and everything. And I had the feeling while that was going on that there was just massive weight had just settled over the room. And once I left the room, then it was like the weight had lifted and I could breathe again. It was crazy. It was traumatizing. Because I when I watch possession movies, I get freaked out all over again because it's like I'm reliving it. But I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'll still watch them. Um, so I guess given that, so what? I guess what do you have to say in that regard?
There's
Based off of
evil.
that, yeah.
There is evil. I don't know what it is, but boy, since I've been back, I stay away from any show like that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to invite that sort of energy in. It's energy. I mean, there's positive energy and negative energy, and just don't go there. I wouldn't go to those movies and stuff where they have anything to do with devils or demons. Um, it was just too awful where I
Mm-hmm.
was because I guess I invited that energy in, and stay away from it.
Yeah.
Uh, Bad news.
Yeah.
I
And that's that heaviness. Sometimes I'll be around a person that's heavy like that, and I got to
Yeah.
get away. I don't want to be. I don't want to have it attached to
Anything
me
to
at
do
all.
with it, yeah.
Mm-mm.
I think it goes back to what we said earlier, to where we don't understand it all, and we're not intended to understand it all. And also goes back to, whether you want to call it Buddhist or Islamic or Christianity. We, especially my generation that grew up, basically in the age of the internet, thinks, oh well, why wouldn't those people just look it up? Just look it up. Well, they were basically all playing a giant game of telephone around the world, so there are common strands of, such things as reincarnation, and things that recur. And one of the recurring things was there was always some sort of war, good versus evil, positive energy versus negative energy. And I don't know exactly what happened, and I don't think we're ever going to know exactly what happened until we get to the other side. And maybe we won't. Maybe we'll be so fascinated and have so many other good things to think about that that's just all kind of in the background and you don't have a need
Probably
for it.
so. Probably so. There's no negative energy up there, so it's not even something
But
you would even
the
come across. But
the idea of there is definitely a very distinct evil heaviness that exists within our realm, within that spiritual realm that I can't put my finger on, but and I don't think we know where it comes from, or will ever know where it comes from, but it definitely exists. And I'm in direct in-home sales, so I meet a lot of people, and I'm in a lot of people's homes. And it was a couple weeks ago, like, just in this guy's house, and I just it made me feel like I wanted to throw up,
Mm.
and like getting like my vision is skewed. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this guy, but I do not want to be here. I don't know
mhm.
what he's involved in. I obviously I don't know him from Adam, but I I have been said and have known to have some sort of a I'm not a psychic or a medium, but somewhat in touch with that side of the realm.
Mhm.
And it's very rare, but every now and then you feel that on somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
you, Kathy, having come back from that
Yeah.
experience that you had, that's another very common thing, as I'm sure you know, with near-death survivors, is you come back with a touch more, or maybe more than a touch more, of that gift after you've been on the other side. You don't come back just the same way you were when
Oh,
you
no.
left.
You're
Yeah.
totally changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are. Yeah, you're a lot more sensitive. There's more of a, I've got a thing. Yeah, I know when people are lying to me or
Mhm.
want to talk, but they're afraid to. I mean, this happens on airplanes all the time. You know, people will sit down and I just read my Kindle, you know, and I can just feel something's going on with that person. And they'll start talking and I'll say, what's going on? And, oh, I just came from my mom's funeral, you know,
Oof.
and I'm just
Mhm.
bereft, you know. I've
Yeah.
had that happen so many times. And so for 2 hours, I talk to them and then they get off and they say, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't run into you today. That's always my cue that I was supposed to talk to that person. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful gift, and we can all do that. We can
Yeah.
all be more sensitive and compassionate.
Yeah.
And
100%.
probably part of the reason why your job on this earth wasn't done yet. You know, why you didn't
Right.
get to stay
I
in
signed
paradise.
up for this, so here I am.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fun. As long I always know I'm on the right track because it's fun. Like with you guys,
Yeah.
you found me, you know, and I looked at your show and I thought, yeah, these guys are great. I don't go on every show, and
Yeah.
then you go
Oh,
and you
thank
have
you.
fun and it's loose and loving and kind and we're helping people that are listening to the show. So it's not hard. I mean, I love having this job. You know?
That's
I
good.
think this is my 108th podcast
Dang.
Oh.
Wow.
in the last 2.5 years. Yeah, I mean, I've got
Busy
4
lady.
more I'm going to do. That's just my mission. Because when I got back and I couldn't move or talk or do anything, I thought, how am I going to do this? And then the whole COVID thing with the
Yep.
podcast. Oh my gosh, that's how. You know, I don't even have to leave the house. It's cool. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's cool. Technology has definitely opened many doors to reach many
Yeah.
different people. Shout out to our 7 listeners out in Brussels.
Oh wow.
Yes. We have they were hot on the download again last Monday. Every single time I posted up, and there's those 7 people in Brussels that
How
download it.
cool
So,
is that?
That's awesome, dude. If we ever have a What in the World like podcast meetup, I'm sure those 7 friends from over there are going to be the first ones to buy tickets to wherever. And I would
keep
love to
waiting for
meet
that
them.
message on Instagram to be like, it's us. But yeah, anyway.
Maybe one day.
That's cool.
Maybe one
Yeah.
day.
Well, and it is to hear your story, you know, is vital, I think, because although you can't convince everybody, and there are going to be the skeptics of the world out there, I think it is really important. You know, we live in a world where, quote unquote, we don't see the modern day miracles. You know, Jesus isn't raising Lazarus from the dead in the temple, you know. But there are so many miracles that exist around us every single day. They're just not viewed like miracles, you know. And your story, I would say, would be one of those where you just get that little touch of heaven. You just get that little touch of the other side, and want to share that. And from what I've heard so far, the main idea, the main, you know, message behind that is, guys, it's okay. Just everybody take a deep breath and be nice to each other. You know,
Yeah,
just
it's
be
gonna be
good to
okay.
each other.
You planned it, and you've got a good ending to it. So you figured it out. By the time you get squared away, it's all gonna be okay. Yeah, lighten up.
Which I get chills hearing you say that, because that's almost verbatim what that spirit guide, whatever you want to call it, in that meditation session said to me. I mean, it was just almost exactly like that, which again is, and then we
Yeah,
find you, and then we're interviewing you. You know, it's almost like, okay,
yeah.
it is
That's the
okay, you know?
synchronicity. See, that's the synchronicity.
Exactly.
Yeah, we meant to
Exactly.
do this. We planned this before we came down here. All 3 of us says, "Hey, let's just let's just bump shoulders about an hour or so when we go this trip. Okay.
Which is such a cool thought to that's like that's
Yeah.
what happened. It's super cool.
Yeah.
You know, and anybody, if you are skeptical, and if you come across this podcast and you are skeptical, I would urge you to read the dozens of near-death experience stories. Kathy's, or
Hundreds and
there's
thousands of them.
there's one very famous one for me that I think is irrefutable, to where this woman was major cardiac arrest, flatlines on the table. Doctors are working on her frantically, and as this is happening, she says that she leaves her body and she's walking around the operating room watching the doctors operate on her. And then she kind of goes somewhere else to a very similar realm, like what you're talking about, where it's basically just like the balloon thing is a great example. When you said that, it would be very similar to, I think, something she would describe. And then has to come back. And then as she comes back, she's telling everybody she saw the doctors working on her, describing in great detail the tools that they were using to work on her, that, no person who's never been in an operating room wouldn't be able to describe those tools. You just wouldn't be able to. And even the doctors are saying, I wasn't a believer of any of this before, but I don't know how she would be able to recount that in such great detail like she did.
Yeah.
The Heaven is for Real book was very popular also, about that child that had the experience.
I love it. Yeah.
I love it too. And again, I think that we get these little touches of heaven, these modern day miracles, and so many people are so quick to say, "Oh, that's just neurons firing in the brain after death," which that's largely been debunked as well, because if your brain and your heart are connected and your heart is not beating anymore, how is your brain still, how are the two still functioning? I'm not smart enough to describe it, but there's a lot of doctors that are now pretty much putting a kibosh on that too, saying, no, that doesn't really justify or explain these encounters these people are having. And I think it's just to give us, again, maybe a little peace of mind, a little whatever it is, to say, hey, listen, it's going to be okay. And there's things here you can't explain, and you're not meant to explain them. And I think I've kind of accessed that realm throughout dreams before. This is another question that I had for you. Growing up, I always heard the stories of, oh, this person died, and then they came to me in a dream, and and I saw them, and I always used to think, well, that's nice, and if that helps that person cope, that's very nice. But I don't think you're going to see them in your dreams, especially if heaven is a place. I think they're a little preoccupied with what's going on to come see you in a dream. Until I had a friend, a boss actually, pass away very unexpectedly, very suddenly. The way things finished for us at work, I never really hated him or anything, but was such a good friend, and I always felt kind of shorted by him in this position, blah, blah, blah. Things didn't end on great terms. He ends up dropping dead one day. I feel some level of guilt about how everything happened. I never got to say, see you later, or I'm sorry for any of that, blah, blah, blah. Go to his funeral, and a couple weeks later, this particular individual had one fully functional leg, and the other leg, he was an amputee from the knee down. And I'm having a dream that I'm in the supermarket with my mom, and we're standing in line to check out, and she says, hey, I forgot to grab bread. Will you run and grab bread real quick? I'm like, yeah. So dream, walking my way down the aisle, and I turn down an aisle, and there's my buddy, Dennis is his name. It brings me chills to this day. He's standing there. He's got that shit-eating grin on his face. He's looking at me like, no words exchanged, but I just know he's telling me like, hey man, it's cool. Like we're fine. And I look at his legs, again, chills, and he's got two perfectly functioning legs, all the way, just, and I woke up immediately, didn't finish the dream. I woke up immediately and was like, that was not a normal dream. That was not my brain telling me, hey, you need to have this dream to make you feel better about the dentist situation. That was real. That just happened. Like, and I don't know how you access it. I don't know how it all works, but I'm a firm believer that there is some sort of dream state that they can communicate with you, or you can communicate with them. And I just, like I said,
Yeah,
nobody could
that's
ever
called
change my mind.
lucid dreaming, and I've had that several times, and you. I had that heaven feeling when I was seeing them. It was just a joy, just
Yes.
a complete joy, and like you say, you're just tingling with excitement, and then you wake up, and it's again like the balloon kind of loses its juice, and I think, oh, I was so glad that they came to visit. It's a
Mm-hmm.
visitation, and they're with you all the time. I mean, my dad died of COVID a couple years ago. He was 97, but I keep his picture holding my book over my computer. He's in his Navy outfit with pictures of his planes in the background. It's really cool, um, because he wrote the first chapter of my book. But when he comes, it's just such a joy. And when he's not in a dream, I still feel him. I mean, I seriously can say, okay, I cannot find my phone or whatever it is, and I'll just
Hmm.
get quiet and say, Dad, I need some help. And I will feel or see or hear, you know, where it is, and I go find it. I mean, he's with me a lot. We were really close, and so I'm very grateful. In fact, nobody believes, well, very few people, he sent me an email. He's he passed away, and I've got it up there. It was a couple months after he died, and my mom and she's got dementia, and she forgot my name. My name is Mary Kathleen. My dad named me after my mom, his mom, Mary. My mother couldn't stand her, so she always called me Kathy. So that's just always the way it is, right? So anyway, my sister was writing a check out, and she put it to Kathy McDaniel. And I says, "Oh, for a check, you have to put Mary McDaniel. I have trouble." And my mom says, "Why Mary?" And I says, "Because that's my name." "No, it's not. I'd never name you Mary." I says, "Yes, you did." I says, "Dad named me Mary." "No, I did not." So I get home, and 2 days later, here comes an email from my dad. I'm looking at it, and the only thing on it, it just says Mary. He was reiterating, yes, I named you Mary, and that's
Wow,
your name. So
Wow.
it's pretty cool.
that is
When I
cool.
saw when I
Wow.
saw the email address up there, I'm sure it was one of those things where he got hacked, or something.
Hmm.
But 2 days later, and to put Mary on there, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was got printed it out and got up on the wall. There's
yeah,
a lot of
that's
stuff we don't know about, but they're there all the time. And I love the fact that the pets are all there too. Everybody talks about their dogs and cats and birds
mm,
and stuff, and because they're all part of God too,
you hear that, little buddy? I'm gonna see you later.
That's right. I got my grand dog, Sammy. He's a golden retriever. He's gonna be the first thing I see. And then we're going to go tell Pat, give him our mind for throwing us out of heaven.
Yeah.
Take
um,
him with
yeah,
me.
but no, going off of they're always with you. My granddad on my dad's side died a couple years ago, right around Christmas time, and right after, well, not too long after he passed, I had my first reading with Emily, but I was always a little like, I was bummed because we lived down there. I lived down there in Australia when I was from 4 to 7, and then when we moved back to the States, we never got a chance to go back and see him. So it was always kind of hanging around me. Like after he died, that I was really bummed I didn't get to see them again before he died. And for a little while, I kept catching it was just always out of the corner of my eye, just like a shadow of a figure just walking like around my house. I would just see, coming out of like my bedroom and walking down the hallway and stuff. And I would always go look real fast. And I was like, what the heck was that? And like my dog never freaked out about it or anything like that. Cause it's one of those things, your pets usually freak out if it's not like, if it's, uh, if it's not benign. And,
Mhm.
and so I was like, yeah, that's super strange. And I had my reading with Emily and she's like, yeah, your granddad's been hanging around. He's just he's checking on you, just seeing how you're doing, and he just, he wants you to know that like it's fine, and that it's okay that you guys didn't get to say goodbye because he's still here, just hanging around with you. He pops in to check on you every now and then, which is true because every now and then I'll catch out the corner of my eye, Granddad's just walking around the house, just checking on me, just seeing what's
Isn't that
going on. So
nice?
it's nice. It gave me a really good sense of peace to know that he was around and that he was doing that.
Hmm.
Because I was torn up for a little while being not being able to say goodbye, but
Right.
it was very comforting to know that like he pops in from time to time just to check on me and see how it's going. And in my most recent reading with Emily, she was like, "Yeah, he just says go out, live your life, and have fun. That's all he. It's just what he wants for you to do." And I was like, "Say less, Granddad."
That's super.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely a firm believer of spirits in your past relatives or whatever, just like hanging around and coming to see you
Hmm.
and checking in
I'm
and
gonna
stuff.
do that when
Yeah.
I come
Well,
back. There's
and that's
people
what
I'm
my
gonna go
mom
see.
told me too. She was like, if what if the time comes when I die, you ever smell like cookies baking or something like that? Just, that's me. I'm, coming to check on you or or whatever. And I was like, okay, mom, it's you still got a while to go. Don't do this
Yeah,
to me right
don't
now.
leave
Like,
yet. Make real
we have
cookies.
yeah. I was like, we've got at least another 40 years. Like, okay, calm down.
My mother and I have a strict agreement that whoever gets there first, we're gonna find a way to let the other one know. And she's like, and it can't be you. It has to be me. I'm like, okay,
Of
I mean,
course.
I don't think we really plan it. I don't know how that all works, but
Yeah.
if I make it there first, I can assure you, I will do everything in my power to let you know
Yeah.
everything's cool on the other side. And if you get there first, you got to let me know, so.
It'll happen.
It will. There's lots of, you want to talk about more stories. I was listening to a guy talk about how his son died tragically in a car accident and how he was so mad at God about it and very firm in his Christianity about, spirits and things, once they're gone, they're in heaven and, you don't reach out to spirits, because that's necromancy or whatever. And
Hmm.
they had this joke about dimes for whatever reason, coins, dimes in their house. And after he passed, the mom would find dimes in just random places. And the dad got so tired of hearing about it. He's like, stop with the dimes. Like it's all a coincidence. And now, it's correlation, not causation or whatever, now you're just paying attention to it. And one day he heard kind of like a voice in his head, like, "Hey, turn around and look on the dresser." And in his head, he said, "Let me guess, it's a dime." And that voice in his head, he said he heard his son say, "No, actually, it's a penny." And he turns around and just in the middle, it was a penny. And he was like,
Oh,
"Okay, all right, all right. Well, I give
you
in.
win.
I'm
Right.
done. You win. I'll look for the damn dimes, I guess."
Right. Which and like so this is another thing that that I love this talk, this segment we've been on, but it also correlates to there's a big a part of Norse paganism is ancestor worship, and they believe that you can still commune with your ancestors. I think that's just like one part of like that religion that like had broken off, but that still kind of fits into the larger puzzle of like religion as a whole and the different pieces that got scattered around. Because that was it's a big part that they at least way back in the day, and I don't know how prevalent it is now, but they used to go sit on top of the grave mounds, the burial mounds of their ancestors, and just have a talk with them, and they would people would come back and be like, yeah, just having a talk with Dad, basically, and
Yeah.
they would go to seek them for like guidance and stuff like that, or they would leave offerings around, and then they would get something back in return, maybe or whatever. But yeah, I think it's all connected. And this interview has solidified more for me that it's all connected, and it's just
Good.
how more so that's kind of just into nuances of how you want to practice it or believe it as it fits for you.
Hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of leeway.
Mm-hmm.
We really do. When we come back, everybody says they're spiritual, not religious anymore.
Yeah.
You just can't do the religion anymore.
Yeah, and I think
It's
that's
restrictive and
yeah.
exclusive and can't do it.
Yeah, and I think that's where I got to before taking the hard lesson. Thankfully, for once in my life, I didn't have to take the hard lesson. um, but I think that's where I got to is now I'm just more spiritual than anything else. And like, yes, I'm on like the Norse pagan path, but it's not like an established like religion. It's more about spirituality,
Curiosity
just
and
curiosity.
you
But
take
it's
the good stuff here and the good
Mhm.
stuff from there, and it's all good.
Yeah, and then it's just it's one of the things that Emily, again, I know I keep referencing her a lot, but I wholeheartedly am a believer in her gift. But she's told me that I'm very connected to the spiritual side of things, and then that I should nurture that side more, which is the main reason I'm on the little journey I am now. She's like, yeah, through everything, your past lives, your background that you have this current life and stuff, you're very connected, and you should explore that more. So
Awesome. It's nice to have that direction so
Yeah.
young.
it is, and I think the same goes for Alex. She's told Alex in either the same words or slightly different words that he's connected as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing a great service out there. Hopefully, you'll get more and more people, and you're doing good. You're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
It's nice to find your purpose.
It is. It really is.
That's all you can do, one day at a time. Just try to be a little bit better than you were the day before.
Yeah.
Try to make somebody's life better.
It's true.
And that whole thing about sin, it's
Mhm.
not real. Human beings make mistakes, and sometimes they
Mistakes.
choose to do things that are not. They'll be in the life review. Anytime now somebody irritates me or does something, I said, that'll be great in your life review, pal.
Enjoy that one when you get to my segment.
I recently heard it described more as there's no good or bad. There's more positive energy and negative energy. A lot of times this particular example they were using of, if you're from a poor neighborhood and you're selling drugs on the street because that's all you know and that's what you do to get by, and then you end up in a gang shooting someday and you take someone else's life, that's really easy to say, oh, well, that's bad. Well, we can all agree that taking someone's life isn't good, but that's a little bit different. That's a different situation. It's really easy to judge that person sitting in your office chair at home, in a home that you can afford the mortgage on, thank God. But to put yourself in that person's shoes, that very easily could have been you. That's just the luck of the draw of the situation. So there's good energy.
Non-judgmental. That's a big one. Non-judgmental.
Yeah.
You can observe, but not judging.
Yeah.
I had a lady in Bible school, one of my favorite ladies, single mom of 4, and God bless that lady. She worked her ass off to provide for her kids and make their life better. And she used to say all the time, she was an African-American lady, and she used to say, sweetie, just remember, we're not on the judge and jury. We're just on the welcoming committee. Thank God we're not on the judge and jury. We're just on the welcoming committee. I love that lady.
Yeah, great attitude.
I like it.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're rolling into been about an hour and 20 minutes, and I know we've talked about kind of this question that Alex is likes to pose to all of our guests. Now we've pretty much talked it to death. I wouldn't say to death, but we've pretty much hit on it the entire podcast. But I think now's a good time for Alex to ask this question, and we'll try and get a short and sweet answer, and we'll end with that.
Well, I was just going to say, we've talked about this pretty much the entire podcast, but I do ask every guest, it's my patented question, our plight in life, our plot in life, why are we here? What can we do to make our existence better on earth? Why are we here and what should we be doing? But again, I think we've kind of covered that, but I don't want to steal the floor. Is there anything else that you can think of to add to our existence as humans?
Just the litany: loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. Oops. And on that note, my phone went off. I don't know if they're calling me from the other side. I have to get this.
That was perfect, actually. Like you were saying that piano riff went, and I was like, this is amazing. That is now
And the
top. I have
angels
a
were very
metaphorical whiteboard of the guests we've asked this to, and that has now moved into position 1 on the sole fact that there was a well-timed piano riff that happened during it. It
my
was
angels.
it
Yeah.
was right there. Just kind of
Oh,
elevated at that, but it's
that's
awesome.
too fun. Well, this has been great fun. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank
I
you so
really had
much
a good time.
for coming on. This
Yeah.
was thoroughly enjoyable. I loved it a lot. So thank you for
Okay.
taking the time to talk with us
Oh, you
this
bet.
evening.
Kathy McDaniel, and I will have a link to your book as I post this on Apple and Spotify. Is there anything else you want to plug, websites or anything like that?
No, you've done it all.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have in the description underneath the YouTube video, which will be here once we're done. I think from the email, I have your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, and I pulled up your book on Amazon and copy pasted that link in there as well. So there's a
Thank
direct
you.
link
Thank
to
you.
your book as
Yeah, the
well.
book sounds like it's a horrible thing, but it's not. You can tell I have a sense of humor. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
worst thing about hell. There's no sense of humor.
I would not survive.
But the rest of it is up very uplifting and big print and short
hmm
paragraphs, and I've been told it's very entertaining.
That's good.
Okay.
Easy reading.
Okay.
Well, once again, everybody, this was Kathy McDaniel on talking to us tonight about her near-death experience and then what she's learned from that and what she's doing with her life now post that. So all of her links are in the description. Her book, direct link to Amazon. Go check it out. It'll be a good read. But once again, thank you for spending time with us tonight. And again, you have an open invitation whenever you want to talk with us again, or we made
Stay in
that
touch.
plan all those times ago. Just drop just drop us a line and we'll make it happen.
Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see you later.
Tell somebody you love them.
We're still live. So
Oh, we're still alive.
yeah, we're still
Oh, I
live. We're
thought.
still good. We're good. We'll get to there. Hold your horses there.
Okay, sorry. I thought you
So
were
good.
just
You're so good about putting the cart
What-
before the horse.
one week you come to me with weak energy. The next week I thought you were forgetting about it. Anyway.
Look, it's a work in progress. So do we have anybody lined up for next week, or is it just going to be
No,
the boys?
next week is just going to be the boys kind of do a quick wrap up of the guests we've had on most recently and kind of just do I have a couple other people lined up after that. I don't have dates confirmed yet, but I thought next week will be a good opportunity for us to kind of take a quick recap of the guests we've had on recently and
I like it. I like it.
invite people to join us so we can talk to Chad if you haven't been able to ask questions or whatever, if you've watched and then want to come next week with your questions. And
Perfect. I like it. So yeah, next week just gonna be just the boys. We'll do like Alex said, we'll do a recap. If you've had any questions that maybe you didn't want to ask beforehand, or you've re-listened to the podcast and now have more questions, you want to chit chat about stuff, that's what we're gonna do next week. So yeah, I did have one final thought, I guess, with her whole thing, and I didn't get a chance to say it during the podcast, but and again, I'm gonna relate this back to Norse paganism because that's where I'm at right now. But it was very interesting to hear her talk about the different realms, because one of the main tenets of Norse paganism, or Asatru, whatever you want to call it, is that you have the life tree, which you kind of you've kind of seen through the Marvel movies and stuff, Yggdrasil, but on the branches of Yggdrasil, there's different realms. So you have the realm of Odin's Hall, which is Valhalla. There's other realms, like the realms of the elves and the dwarves and stuff. So it's interesting that she mentioned different realms. So it's kind of just like another puzzle piece that kind of fits in among everything. So very interesting.
It has changed my perception on the heaven hell topic.
Yeah, it was interesting to me that she said that if you don't believe in hell, you're not going to go.
Which I think
makes more sense rather than just having the church slam you in the face that it's going to happen whether you like it or not. If you're a sinner.
And I think that the Hitler example is a good example. I think even all of the atrocities that Hitler created. And again, this isn't going to be a Kanye West moment where I'm like,
Hey, he was good. He invented the microphone on highways. He was a great guy.
But yeah, but I think still somewhere, even in Hitler's sick and twisted mind, he thought he was doing something to better the human race. As horrible,
I mean, as horribly as he went around, it was. But there was something in it that was like, this is for the better, right?
There's people on Murderers Row that, and I've watched a lot of this. There's like another Netflix documentary about people on Murderers Row, death row, and there are people. Again, I've written the book on why some serial killers go to, or not the book, the
thesis.
paper, thesis. But there are some people that are just evil, and they are self-proclaimed evil, and they say, I have to be locked up because if I were to get out, I would kill again, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. That's for whatever reason. And I've always thought, well, if there's a hell, that's a pretty good, that's a pretty good candidate to be where we're not all sharing eternal.
But I think with that, like people like that, they're just going to be so wrapped up in it that they're not going to get a chance to experience the good side. They're just going to hang on to it in the afterlife, and then that's going to be their own personal version of like hell, if you call it. I think people like Hitler are so sociopathic that they've conned themselves or whatever, or they truly believe that they are doing good for society, and it's just they can't see that it's not.
Yeah,
it's just twisted in such a way in their brain that they think they're doing good, and they can't see that it's actually not good. So perhaps, maybe he is still sitting in front of his life review going, fuck, dude, I screwed up bad. Like, that was bad. That was it. Ah, shit, dude. And then you have people like on death row that are just like, no, lock me up or I'll kill again. And then they're going to be the ones that perhaps are stuck in that dark void where it's just fucking terrible for them all of the time because they just can't let go.
Well, if you create your own hell in that sense, it would make perfect sense to me, to where if that's what you've created for yourself in the afterlife, that you would talk about like a purgatory, like you would be stuck.
Yeah, you're stuck there. You just can't.
You never experienced the joys that come with, acts of service or showing unconditional love to someone. You don't have that to draw upon to help yourself break out of that.
So even if they do get, like, they'll just be, whether it's their own personal or not, they'll just be stuck at perhaps that life review portion because they just can't get out of it because they're just like, and maybe that's their thing. That's what they're just like, this is good for me because I get to relive all of the terrible things I did, and I'm just not going to let it go.
It's fascinating, man.
And
I think, experiences like the ones that she has had, if anybody would be skeptical of this sort of thing, I would encourage you to do some research on the hundreds of thousands of other cases that have happened that have recounted very similar stories. And I think it's kind of past the point of, like a debunking.
I think we're well past the point of like, oh, they're crazy people.
They're definitely not crazy. And I think
it's definitely not like you mentioned earlier, it's not neurons firing off. You don't experience all of that in the blink of a neuron firing off.
That's, to me, what made most sense about this argument. Like, yes, these people have experienced these things, but this is all just like a rush of, dopamine hitting your brain as your body tries to, comfort you into death, which is just great darkness. That has pretty much scientifically been debunked. Again, I'm not smart enough to go into the details of it, but it is very much so to do with your head. Your brain and your heart are not independent of each other. One can't function without the other. So as you flatline, and watch that Surviving Death show on Netflix if you're a skeptic, because I think your mind would be changed. And I think that what people like Kathy have experienced is real.
Well, and I think the best way to put it, and how she did it, is like, it's your soul is driving this meat bag as its car. Yeah. And so her car was parked, so the soul was like, fuck it. I'm going to go take an adventure. Why do I need to be here? When it's ready for me to come back, I'll come back.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it. It's just that just a soul driving a meat bag around, and
and
occasionally the soul gets out of the meat bag.
yeah, and I don't want to spark another hour conversation.
I know we got to wrap it up, but
But the soul, the human soul, is one thing that humans have never been able to recreate. We'll never be able to recreate. We can come up with Chat GPT, we can come up with all these different technological advances, but to create another human soul is just unfeasible right
it's
now.
not going to happen.
I don't see a world where you could ever create consciousness.
When that day comes, it's going to be scary, and I'm just going to be like, I maybe would like to unsubscribe now.
I don't think it's possible. I really don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
And it goes back to my point of, matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So
True,
how did any of us get here, and why are we, who created the initial matter?
Yeah. So I'm going to play devil's advocate real fast, and then we can wrap it up. So you say, you can't recreate it. So yeah, that's fine. But so going off what Kathy said is like, your pets and stuff are going to be there when you're gone. We've cloned sheep and other animals. So if we get to the point where we're cloning humans, like the devil advocate part on that is like you've just straight created an exact copy. Now, is it just the meat bag, or did we get to a point where we've copied the soul as well, just made a complete photocopy? Who knows?
Well, but when you clone a sheep, there still has to be a birthing process, right?
No, they do it all in a test tube. They created it all in a test tube and a fake, like an artificial womb and embryo, and like they put the embryo in an artificial womb, and then they
but it was
basically like the sci-fi movies. They basically just cut the sack open. So there's your birthing process.
It was still the creation of a life, though.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know.
Did the sheep have a soul? Well, I was just playing devil's advocate, Kristen, because they said she said your pets will be there in the afterlife. Some people have sheep as pets. That could be. So who knows?
When genetically and DNA based, yes, that could be the same exact pet in a sense, but that pet is not going to walk every single, it's not like it's gonna come out pre-programmed to be like, oh shit, like I gotta head to New England and trot across this path and
they're
eat
gonna
those
have to
7 blades of grass because that's what the
so you get into it again. Yes, you've genetically recreated a sheep, but it's not gonna have the same memories as the other sheep, but you'll have to, it's basically treating it like it's a newborn and creating new memories with it. So
correct.
I was just just trying to play a little devil's advocate just for poops and chucks, but
I hear you. And the pets one is another.
Was that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where the dog dies and he goes and gets it cloned, and then it turns into like a whole action movie? It's an old movie. I can't remember the name of it. I'd have to look at it.
I thought you were going the Pet Cemetery route.
No. That movie's twisted.
Yeah, that movie.
Anyway, guys, before we get off on any more crazy tangents, because Alex and I will sit here and chit chat about this for another hour and a half. Like we tell you every week,
make sure you tell somebody you love them, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. You never know when the creator in the sky is going to call your number. And maybe you'll be like Kathy and your number will get called, and then you'll get up there and they'll be like, glad you got a little taste of this, but you're not done down there.
Sorry, we pulled your daily number early. It might be.
Get back in there, champ.
Not related. I'd actually, Kristen, I don't think the sheep lived very long. I can't remember. I don't think it was terribly long. Anyways, with that, we will see you guys next week for just a pretty chill episode, just recapping everybody we've had on, giving you guys space to ask questions you maybe didn't get a chance to ask this time, and maybe we'll look at some news. Who knows? Maybe I'm just bored with the news now after we've had all these crazy and super cool interviews. It's
been a fun ride, man. It's like I texted you. It's like I texted you after the podcast last Sunday. This has been so fun. And I've listened to all of them on Monday mornings, actually. And I've had such a fun time going back and listening again. And this is a great opportunity if you have missed any of the last few guests. There's nothing like time sensitive, it's not like we're talking about current events. So
Yeah.
if you go back and listen to one of those interviews, it again, there's nothing is time sensitive in there. So it's not like you're going to be like, oh crap, talked about the, I don't know, Nord Stream pipeline or whatever. So go back and listen. If you have questions, write them down or email them or send them to the socials, and we'll be here chilling next Sunday
Yep.
doing a recap.
Yep. Bye for now. Love you all, and we will see you next week. Peace out.
I love you guys. Bye.